Grassy Narrows First Nation is located about 2,000 kilometers northwest of Toronto. But today, members from the reserve are in Canada's largest city to demand attention from Ontario's premier. They are suffering from a legacy of mercury poisoning in their community. The CBC's Jody Porter is the only reporter from a major network to have recently visited Grassy Narrows, and she joins me live from Thunder Bay. What's the message, Jody, that Grassy Narrows wants to deliver to the Ontario government?
Well, they want the Ontario government and the federal government to know that they are still suffering the effects of the mercury poisoning. They would like to have Canadian research, their own research institute. They keep having to turn to the Japanese Minamato or mercury poisoning experts to follow their ongoing legacy of mercury poisoning. They'd like jurisdiction over their lands, they say. Obviously, they're living the fact that the governments haven't done a very good job of taking care of the land, and they're looking for the opportunity to do that, particularly in light of clear-cut logging that is going on in the area. They say that adds to the mercury burden. Research shows that that's the case. So they'd like the authority and the jurisdiction to say when and where and if development happens. But mostly, Suanna, they're just looking for an ongoing conversation with the governments. I spoke with the chief on Friday, and he said it was as though in the 1980s, when a compensation board was set up for a limited number of people in Grassy Narrows, that the government said, here's your money, that's the end of the conversation. And obviously it hasn't been the end of the poisoning and its effects on people in Grassy Narrows.
And based on your trip, what did people in the community tell you were the effects of mercury?
Well, I had the opportunity to see 3 generations of the effects of mercury poisoning. I met with Sherry Fobister. She's 34 years old, so she wasn't even born when the mercury was dumped in the river. She says she has numbness and tingling, and she's had seizures in the past. It kind of feels like she's having a stroke. She's not eligible for the compensation from the Mercury Board, but her daughter is. Her 12-year-old daughter was born with several small brain tumors, and she suffers seizures, physical and mental impairments. And also, most tellingly, Sherry's father, Steve Fobister, the former chief of Grassy Narrows, a once powerful man. We went to visit him at his home. He now uses a cane. He has to hold his jaw with his thumb to be able to stop the spasms that he experiences, to be able to talk or eat. Steve says it's environmental discrimination that allowed people who rely on the land to live to be poisoned in this way. But he's worried about another kind of discrimination when he comes to Toronto this week. He said he falls down easily and he can't get up on his own. And he says he's worried people who see him in Toronto this week might think that he's just drunk. But really, it's the ongoing effects of mercury poisoning. He's only 60 years old. He remembers his grandfather lived to 100.
Thanks so much for that, Jody. That's the CBC's Jody Porter in Thunder Bay, Ontario.